Good to be with you. The 9 o'clock service people warned me about you. They said, watch out for them. Okay, so I got my eye on you during this one. I'm coming from Houston. Houston's a little bit different than here, a little bit. There it's the flat, the hot, the humid. If it rains for more than an hour, it floods. And so this is different. I like this. But I mistakenly called all these things around us mountains. I'm like, man, I'm liking the mountains around here. And someone quickly corrected me. Oh, no. These are hills, man. These are the rolling hills of West Virginia. And so to me, any kind of interesting topography is nice. And so I'm glad to be here. And I did live in the mountains legit for a little bit. A couple years ago, I was a pastor in Idaho. And way up north at the very top of it, and got to spend some time. And one of the hobbies that I got into when I was there was backpacking, solo backpacking and camping. You walk out into the wilderness with, supplies, and you think you're Bear Grylls and you're going to just survive, that kind of thing. And so I'm not Bear Grylls. And I found that out the first time I went out. So I go out there, I hike out, I park at the trailhead, and finally I'm going to be making camp way out there after I've hiked for a couple hours. This is fun. And I packed light, so I packed not a tent, but a hammock. So at the night, I'm going to be just this delicious burrito wrapped up about bare mouth height off the ground. All right, so about there. And if you've been camping, it's fun. If you've been camping by yourself, it's different because you hear things. You hear things that are there, but now they're coming for you, if that makes sense. And so I'm there, wrapped up in my little burrito, hanging between 2 trees, and you start to hear twigs breaking. All right, well, that's just the forest. That happens, okay. You hear the footsteps, and they feel like they're circling you. And so I'm laying there. I've got my 10 millimeter on my chest, ready to do combat. I'm like, bring it on. But please don't. And I've been told, hey, there's wolves, there's mountain lions, there's moose. Those are the mean ones. And then there's bears, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And so what am I doing out here by myself, wrapped up in a delicious burrito at mouth height? So there I am. And the first night, I'm staying awake, I'm listening, seeing if anything comes close. If I get nudged by something, I'm going to scream. And first night, did not sleep a wink. I stood guard. Hiked the next morning, went a little further in. I'm still having fun on my restful trip. And so I do the same thing, make camp, get in my little delicious burrito at mouth height, and the same thing. I'm hearing noises at night. They're coming for me again. The bears are coming. And so after a couple of days of that, I am exhausted. I'm at kind of a place where if I go further in, I may not be able to get back out because I'm just getting so tired. And so finally, I go through that whole trip up until then, and I don't see one bear. I'm a little disappointed, but a lot relieved. I didn't see a bear yet. I make it back to the trailhead. I'm putting all the stuff in the back of my car. I'm done. I'm a little weary. I'm tired, but okay, this was fun. Okay, you survived. I got a good story to tell. And then I hear the sound behind me. And there he is, trying to get into a trash can. Coming out of a bush is this black bear. And it's one of those things, I turned around, and I think he turned around at the same time. And we meet eyes. We have that couple seconds of like sizing the situation up. And he literally gives me rolls his eyes, and it's like, you're not impressing me, man. I'm not scared. And so I just kind of get in my car and peel off and recover from my heart attack, and that's what it was. Go all the way home, land on my couch when I get there, and I'm thinking to myself, I need a vacation from this now. Rest is good. That trip wasn't so restful, but rest is good. God thinks so too. And so I have a question for you this morning. If you get 10 Christians in a room together, you're probably going to get at least 12 answers about what is the Sabbath. That's our 4th word in the series. We've already covered some things talking about how we love God, and so we get to the fourth commandment, the Sabbath day commandment. What is the Sabbath? And you'll get all kinds of answers. Well, you'll say, well, it's seventh day of the week, right? So it's Saturday. And then some people will say, well, no, that's just for the Jews. And then some people will say, well, no, it's Sunday now. That's the new Sabbath, right? And some people will say, well, literally the word means rest, and so it's a rest day, all right? And then some people will Jesus juke you, and they'll be very spiritual. They're like, no, it's a day of worship, heathens. And so I'm like, okay, so what is it? Some people will say, well, it's a nice nap day. And I'm on board with that one. Who here is looking forward to, you get lunch, you take your Sunday afternoon nap, you wake up in time for dinner, okay? Anybody else? Just me. No, they're there. There's my people. All right, good. No, I'm a big nap person on Sunday. Knocked me out. And so it's good. And so to some people, that's what Sabbath is. But let me go ahead and give you the answer. We can get out of here early. I'll give you the answer to the question. The Sabbath is an onion. You peel it back layer by layer. All of it's the onion, every bit of it, but you start to getting closer to a greater reality at the center, what God really means by it. So that's what we're looking at this morning. Go ahead and we're going to look at Exodus 20. By now, a familiar passage after a few weeks of going there. And so we're going to be at verse 8 this time. And it says this, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your livestock or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy. So right there, it gives us some of the answers to what is the Sabbath. It's the seventh day of the week, Saturday, as we would call it. It's a day of rest. It's called a holy day. It's a day set apart by God and for God. That is the Sabbath. But ask yourself this, is God mainly concerned with that we don't wear ourselves out? He wants us to take that one day a week off so we don't tire out, we don't burn out, and we crash. There's a part of that's true. There's a part about the Sabbath that is, there's practical wisdom in what God is prescribing for rest here. And we know some people, maybe you're one of these people too. I tend to be sometimes. There's the workaholics. They just go, and then they die. And they have to be reminded to slow down, rest, take it easy. All right? Those people, they make the world go round, but sometimes it goes around too fast. And so they have to be told to settle down, to rest. But then there's the other people, and if you're one of these, don't raise your hand, it's okay. We know who you are. There's not the workaholics, there's the couchaholics. Anybody brave enough to admit it? Okay. Yeah, I see a couple hands. It's okay. And these people, they don't go and go and go. They sit and snack and watch. and sometimes may need to be reminded to get off the couch and actually work for 6 days and then rest on the seventh. The point of the fourth commandment is that there needs to be balance. Don't overwork, don't overrest. Balance. And so that's what God is telling them to do. There's a prescription for that. The Sabbath was never meant to be a burden that we have to schedule things around. Rest is a privilege, and God is giving us that. Let's go now to the very first Sabbath. Go all the way back to the Genesis. Unlike all the other commandments, the fourth commandment has its roots in creation week. Codified in the law with Moses, but its origins go back all the way to Genesis chapter 2. Let's go there and look at it. Genesis chapter 1, the first 6 days of creation, we see that, and then the beginning of chapter 2, verse 2. On the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done and rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. Some questions, maybe some obvious questions, but why rest? Was he tired? Was God just tuckered out? I've never created a universe, God has, but it would probably make me tired. It didn't make God tired. He was able to create it. He was not replenished in the slightest little bit. Did he need to rest? He didn't rest because he was tired. He rested because he was done. The work was complete. That's why he rested. But also, it kind of sets the example for us, dads, as you do in your household. You set an example for your family. Maybe you can work and go, do work at home, do work in the office or wherever you are at, and then come home and just keep on going, and family gets to see that. And it's for them. They appreciate it. But sometimes maybe you need to take a rest, a day off, just to show them that it's okay. It's okay to rest. Your wife might need a rest. Your kids might need a rest. And so you, even though you may not need it, take it anyway. Be the example. Maybe that's what God is doing here. Taking rest. He doesn't need it, but he's showing us that it's okay. The fourth commandment also is something that it bridges the gap between the first three commandments that talk about loving God, right? And then the next 6 commandments we're going to talk about in the several weeks, it's really focusing on loving others, right? And so, but this acts as kind of a hinge in between the two sides of the 2 commandments. You have loving God and loving others. The Sabbath does both. We keep the Sabbath holy and we rest. And by doing that, we are loving God, but also we're loving to others. Because it's not just about rest in relationship with God, it's rest in relationship with others as well. There's not really much here in Genesis 2. It doesn't give all the answers I wish it did, honestly, because I like to know kind of like, well, what else was going on? Something that it doesn't have that's kind of interesting, it doesn't have an ending formula like the other days have. Have you ever noticed this? So the first through 6th day, Moses gives this little sign-off for each day, and the evening and the morning was the first day, 2nd day, 3rd day, etc. But then when it comes to the 7th day, it doesn't say that. It doesn't have that. So did Moses forget or something? Or is this kind of like a space-time continuum thing? Was the 7th day not a 24-hour day? Or should we read that into it? No, I don't think so. But there's something about the 7th day I think God wants us to get. A little wink here. There's something about the 7th day, some aspect to it that did not end. There's something about it that is keep on going. And it's even going on to today. It does not end. It doesn't have the ending sign off like the others. So what did God do on his day off? I asked that. That's kind of a rhetorical preaching question, but someone in the front row was like, he rested. And I'm like, thank you. Yes, he did. He rested. We know that's what God did on the 7th day. But what does that look like for God? We know what our rest looks like, but what did God do when he rests? Is he just like on the throne and then feet up on his footstool, which is the earth? Did he do that? Watch Netflix? What does God do on his day off? Well, I can kind of guess, because if you go back to day 6 and kind of see what leads up to that, I think I know where his heart's at. Day 6, he speaks the animals into existence, right? As he did everything else, the command of his voice. He does something different when he gets to Adam. He doesn't speak man into existence. He kneels down into the dirt, shapes man out of the dirt, breathes into him the breath of life, and man becomes a living soul. Adam wakes up, I imagine, probably a little disoriented, and God gives him a little like, hello, son, I'm your father. Probably that was probably there. And then he said, hey, get the clipboard. Come on, we're going to go name the animals real quick. Okay. And so they go off and they do that. Adam names the animals, and they're all in pairs, and he's kind of lonely. Adam was persuaded to take a nap after naming the animals, and then when he wakes up from his nap, God introduces him to the most beautiful woman in the world. And she's single. Yes. And so this is a good day. All right. Good first day on earth. And so Adam and Eve created on day 6, but their first full day together is day 7. What did they do? What did God do on his day off? Paternity leave. We've heard of maternity leave, right? That's when a woman in the workforce has a baby, takes some time off to be at home, do all the, early development stuff and counting the toes, make sure they're all there. I know you do that. And so, but paternity leave, paternal, dad, we don't hear that a bunch. And so, but I think that might be what's going on here. What would you expect a loving father to do with his son and daughter on their first full day on the planet? Sure, he spent time with them, walked with them in the cool of the evening in the Garden of Eden, walking around creation, looking at the animals, looking at the plants, and all the aspects of creation. It's kind of like when you take your little kids to the zoo, and they're walking around and they're looking at the animals, and wow, look at that. You're not really watching the animals at the zoo, you're watching them. If you're videotaping, you got your phone out and you're recording it, you're not recording what they're looking at, you're recording them. You want to see their reaction. Your joy is their joy. That's what parents do. That's what this was. What did God do on his rest day? Paternity leave. He was with his children. And that kind of makes sense. It's what we'd expect. A good dad comes home from work, wants to spend time with the family. He gets down on the carpet and plays with his little kids. That day must have been so awesome that God says, you know what, Adam and Eve, this needs to become a thing. We need to do this more often. Let's revisit this moment. And therefore, he established the Sabbath day, made it holy, and says, we're going to have this again. The Sabbath day invitation is an invitation into fellowship with God, an open-ended invitation, a Sabbath without end. So is that it? Did we do it this morning? Is that the end of the onion? That's the Sabbath. Rest and relationship? No, there's a little more. Did you know that there's other Sabbaths in the Bible? All right? Anybody? So there's the weekly Sabbath, and then there's the Sabbath of Sabbaths. That's the yearly Sabbath. Leviticus 25 tells us about this a little bit. Let's look at it. The Lord spoke to Moses, this is verse 1, on Mount Sinai, saying, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I will give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. The land will keep a Sabbath. Every 7 years was a Sabbath year. And what would happen is they weren't allowed to sow any seed or harvest or plant anything or prune vineyards, nothing. They couldn't do anything like that. If something grew naturally from the ground, they could eat it, but they couldn't harvest anything for a commercial crop to get ahead that year. That's not what they're supposed to do. And so what God is doing is he trying to give them practical wisdom again? He could be. Is there practical wisdom in resting soil? Yeah, farmers still do that today. But I think there's something else still underneath that practical wisdom once again. And he's telling them, I am your provider and your sustainer, not the land. So when you rest that land, you're admitting we're not having faith in the land to provide for us. We're having faith in the Lord to provide. Sabbath year. Other things that happened in the Sabbath year, debts were forgiven. That's nice. Anybody want to need a Sabbath year? Okay, yeah. Student loans. And then slaves and indentured servants went free. And so all of this was going on in this Sabbath year. It was a big year. And then there's another Sabbath, the Sabbath of Sabbaths. Say that 5 times fast. Every 50 years, and so the year after 7 Sabbath years, you have the year of the Lord's favor, the year of Jubilee. And on this, they would treat it just like a Sabbath year, but then also if you lived if you had left home, lived somewhere else, that was the year that you went back to your family land, your tribe land. If there was land that was leased out to someone else, that land was given back. It all returned back to the original family that owned it. It's kind of like a hard reset in the real estate market. Everything just came back. And so what God is telling them with this is he is expanding this idea of Sabbath. The Sabbath is not just about rest and relationship, but he's telling Israel, when you think of rest and relationship with me, I want you to also think freedom, forgiveness, restoration, family inheritance. When you think about rest and relationship with me, think about those things as well. And so that's why God is putting all these Sabbaths into their history. God establishes this pattern in the Old Testament of these Sabbaths. And when you see pattern, a little clue when you're reading the Old Testament, when you see a pattern form, think prophecy. Like when the sacrificial system, sacrificing animals, that was pointing to something. It was prophesying something in the future would happen, right? This is the same thing. This pattern forming of Sabbaths, when we see that, we have to think something else is coming. This is pointing to. God also calls the Sabbath a sign. Leviticus 31:17, God tells them, the Sabbath, it is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, that in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. The Sabbath was a sign that pointed towards a greater reality. Like a road sign, if you see a road sign, that's not the destination. That's pointing you towards the destination, right? If you see a sign, you're going north and it says Pittsburgh, you haven't arrived yet. You keep going. And so that's what this was. God is putting road signs, pointing to them towards a destination to get to. And after generations of Hebrews lived and died as slaves in Egypt, never knowing rest, only work, God delivers them and he tells them, I'm going to give you a destination, someplace where you can find rest. So he does that. Moses takes them through the wilderness for 40 years. They walk around. After that, Joshua takes them into the promised land where they're supposed to, that's God's promised rest, right? The land. Well, they find out that even after occupying the land, that's really not what the road sign was pointing towards. We see this, King David, about 400 years after they'd entered the land, writes this and pleads with God's people and reminds them of their history. And he says this in Psalm 95, verse 7. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as at Meribah, as on the day at Massah in the wilderness, when your fathers put me to the test and put me to the proof, though they had seen my work. For 40 years I loathed that generation and said, they are a people that go astray in their heart, and they have not known my ways. Therefore I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. There's more to God's promised rest than just occupying the land. It's more to God's rest than keeping the fourth commandment. There's more to it than just, it goes beyond freedom from slavery, freedom from debt. It goes beyond resting the land. There's still a greater reality, a sign pointing to something else in the future that they're not getting yet. Let me ask you something real quick. Relationships. Is there a difference? Does it check the box of having a relationship? Does being in proximity count as being present in the moment? Oh, I heard guys that time. In the first service, all the women said, no, it doesn't. And then I got all their husbands in trouble. So good. I was waiting for an answer on that one. Proximity does not equal presence, being close. Let's use the illustration we did earlier. All right, dad comes home from work. He says, you know what, I need to spend some time with the family tonight. So he goes into the living room. There's the kids playing on the carpet again. Mom's in the kitchen getting dinner ready. And so he goes into the living room where they are, sits down on his favorite chair, puts his feet up, takes out his phone, and starts playing games until dinner's ready. Does proximity check the box of being present? No. But by the time you get to Jesus in the New Testament, Israel had gotten really good at checking the Sabbath box, so much so that they missed what it was really about. Go ahead and go. We're going to look at a story from Jesus. Go ahead and go to Matthew chapter 12. One of Jesus' run-ins with the Pharisees, as he had many. And so look at chapter 12 all the way up at the top. And it says this. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck the heads of grain and to eat. Uh-oh. But then when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what's not lawful to do on the Sabbath. And he said to them, have you not read what David did when he was hungry? And those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the law how the Sabbath, on the Sabbath, the priest in the temple profane the Sabbath and are guiltless? I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. And if you had known what it means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. There's two kinds of Sabbath keepers here, just like there is today. One is the rule keeper. To the rule keeper, the focus of the Sabbath is on what not to do. You don't work. But then the Sabbath becomes a burden. I have to schedule all my work around the Sabbath, so therefore I'm keeping the Sabbath. So they are a rule keeper. They are following the letter of the law. They're not doing it. They're performance-oriented. They go to church. They sing the songs. They listen to the preaching. They're in proximity. And then there's the faithful, we'll call them. For them, the focus of the Sabbath is not on what not to do, it's not what anything, it's who. It's God. It's others. To them, the Sabbath is rest and relationship. It refreshes them. It's not a burden. To them, they experience the freedom. They live in the forgiveness. They experience the peace that comes with it. They are present in the moment. All of this is pointing towards something. But real quick, go back up. We have to answer this. So how was Jesus not breaking the Sabbath, though? And his disciples, they were harvesting, I guess, technically. So how are they not breaking the Sabbath? Because Jesus and his disciples, they were in rest and relationship with the Lord of the Sabbath. For Jesus' disciples, every day that they followed him around and had faith in him, to them it was a Sabbath day by our definition. Not by the strict legal code of the law, but that's not what it was always about. There's a greater reality to it. They had accepted the Sabbath day invitation from Jesus. And where's that at? I like how Matthew wrote his gospel because it's just a couple verses above that. Go to Matthew 11:28, and you'll see Jesus' Sabbath day invitation. as he calls them. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. The labor Jesus is talking about, though, is not the labor that you do for 6 days and then rest on the seventh. No, he's talking about something else. He's getting to the core of what it means. He's talking about our striving to earn righteousness by way of the law, our striving to be good enough, our striving in vain to make ourselves acceptable to God. And he's saying, I will give you rest from that. And we would say, well, how? Jesus, how are you going to give us rest from that when the law could not? He came to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, the year of Jubilee, the Sabbath of Sabbaths. The Lord of the Sabbath came to give his life for ours on a cross. And on the cross, with his dying breath, he proclaimed for all those, us, me and you, who labor and are weary and heavy laden, he said it was finished. And then when he ascended back into heaven, he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He didn't sit down because he was tired. He sat down because he was done. The work he came to do was complete on our behalf. And so for me and for you, anyone, when we place our trust in Jesus Christ, we can experience that Sabbath that never ends. What it's always pointing towards, what it was always meant to be. No more striving to be good enough. Forgiveness and freedom from sin. A restored relationship with God and an inheritance of eternal life. So what is the Sabbath? Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday? Do we keep the fourth commandment? Do we not? Colossians 2, I think, gives a fine pointed period to that question. And it says this in 2:16. Therefore, let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food or drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These things are a shadow, a road sign, a pattern, a prophecy of things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. Should we have a day off of work each week? Is there practical wisdom in taking God's prescription for rest? Absolutely, yes. There's always practical wisdom in what God gave them, but then there's something underneath, a greater reality. And so this morning, instead of that, I'm going to ask you the greater reality question. Are you resting in Christ? If you've not put your faith in Jesus Christ already, his Sabbath day invitation is for you. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. But there are surely many of you out there who've already put your faith in Christ. And so I have a different question for you. What does your Sabbath, how we've defined it, what does your Sabbath look like? Are you in proximity this morning, or are you present? Really? Is your soul at rest, or are you anxious? You're at church, you came, your mind is somewhere else. You're thinking about what will provide for you, what will sustain you, when all along he said, come to me for that rest, and I take care of that. I am your provider and your sustainer. What does your Sabbath look like? After he has freed you from sin, are you choosing to enslave yourself again to sin? After he has set you free, the best part about it, he forgave us and then he freed us. That's not who we are. Some of us, getting past that forgiveness, we accept his forgiveness, but it's hard to live in the reality of that forgiveness because you don't know what I've done. You don't know who I am. You don't know who you're preaching to. I've done bad things. Church, you don't know who I am. Wretched man that I am, who will save me from this body of death? That applies to all of us. But the greater reality is he freed me and he forgave me. Are you resting in that? Is that your Sabbath? Maybe you need to come back and be present. And to that, the Lord asked you this: come to me, all who labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Amen. Will you stand?